On this episode of the Disaster Podcast, what is black mold truth versus fiction? Stay tuned. Who hasn't heard of toxic black mold? After all, it's been featured on both local news segments as well as national programs such as 2020 and 48 Hours. But what is toxic black mold, and what does it mean if you think you have it in your home? It can be incredibly difficult to separate mold fact from mold fiction, so we're going to try to dispel some of the myths, particularly as it relates to toxic black mold. Is mold hazardous to my health? Can mold make me sick? While these are all legitimate questions, most of them are the result of media reporting being more interested in sensationalism than fact. The fact of the matter is that most reported health effects of toxic black mold are attributed to allergic reactions. Some studies estimate as much as 30% of the population may have some form of mold allergy, or as a result of chronic, long-term exposure. For the most part, mold is best compared to an allergen such as cat dander, where some people may have mild allergic reactions, while others will exhibit no symptoms at all. For the vast majority of people with mold allergies, minor symptoms such as runny nose, watery eyes, headache, or coughing have been reported. A much smaller percentage of the population has reported more serious health effects from severe headaches, rashes, muscle pain, new or increased response to allergens, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, to more severe conditions such as hair loss, anxiety or depression, insomnia, fatigue, recurring infections, and autoimmune issues. Research is ongoing into the effects mold exposure has on these individuals, those at greater risk, developing children, the elderly, and those with compromised immune systems, and those subjected to long-term exposure to mold-contaminated areas. Is black mold worse? So we've addressed the myth and current state of research as it pertains to health problems resulting from mold exposure, but what are we able to ascertain from the color of mold growth? Honestly, not much. The color of mold growth is affected by a number of factors, from the food source to the growing environment to the mold strain. While it's convenient to categorize one color as more dangerous than another, the truth of the matter is that simply is not the case. Whether the mold growth is green, white, blue, or black, no mold color causes more damage to your home or indoor environment than any other, and all should be addressed properly and effectively as quickly as possible. While the media has certainly sensationalized the health hazards of mold exposure, one hazard introduced by mold growth has not been given attention, and that's the damage mold growth can cause to your home. If moisture issues are not properly mitigated, mold growth can result in structural damage that can lead to expensive and complex repairs and mold remediation. For this reason, it is recommended to address water damage and mold growth properly and as quickly as possible. A professional mold remediation company is capable of removing the mold contamination and should be able to make recommendations for resolving moisture problems and preventing future mold growth. It is strongly recommended to contract with mold remediation companies that do not do their own mold testing, as this is viewed as a conflict of interest. Where do mold problems come from? Though your home may be kept very clean, it's important to understand that mold spores are everywhere and require only water and a food source to grow. As most building materials are viable food sources for mold, once moisture is present, regardless of how clean you keep your home, mold growth can result. Though we can certainly understand feeling a need to clean a mold problem when you do discover it, it's important to recognize a mold contamination that requires professional mold remediation by qualified experts. In the case of mold contamination, it is often what you don't see that is of the most concern. Though you may see visible mold growth on a wall, for instance, a professional mold remediator may be able to determine the likelihood that mold growth also exists within wall, floor, or ceiling cavities, or other hard-to-reach areas. Additionally, mold spores will be in the air, potentially spreading the mold growth to other areas of the home. For these reasons, it's important to contract with a professional mold remediation company such as Disaster Blaster, who will be able to determine the unique needs of your mold remediation project and put in place steps to resolve the mold problem and remove the contamination. Whether you discover a mold issue following a storm event, a roof leak, or a pipe break, following long-term issues such as basement or attic humidity problems, or during a home remodel, it's important to recognize that mold issues can be much worse than you initially realize. Not only can mold growth be hiding inside wall or ceiling cavities, but if cleaning or tear out is attempted and this work is not completed properly, mold spores could contaminate other areas of your home, potentially creating a much larger project. For this reason, it is always a good idea to have a professional take a look at any mold issue to determine the full scope of the contamination and what steps will be necessary to rectify the problem. Would you like to take control of your future and build a business you can be proud of? We can help. As a Disaster Blaster franchise partner, our industry experts will help you unlock the potential of the $210 billion restoration industry. Disaster Blaster offers the most revenue streams in the restoration industry, training and support from industry experts, a unique model primed for your success, and more. Call our franchise team today to learn more at 302 242 1042 or visit us on the web at disasterblasterfranchise.com. Stay tuned for some frequently asked questions. But while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Does homeowners insurance cover mold? This is a question that we get all the time, and the answer is that it may and it may not. It's not a simple question to answer. For starters, what caused the mold growth? In insurance policies that do include some form of mold coverage, it will extend coverage only to mold growth that develops from an otherwise covered claim. For example, if you have a roof leak and mold develops as a result, your policy may include coverage to address the mold issue as well. It is extremely important, however, to ensure that you schedule mitigation and drying services immediately. Mold that results from failure to properly or adequately mitigate a water issue is generally not covered under the policy. The second consideration is what is covered under your policy, as not all policies are the same. While some insurance policies may include mold coverage as part of the base policy, most require that you elect for additional coverage in the form of a mold endorsement. A mold endorsement will add additional coverage to your policy in the event that mold growth results from a covered claim, often setting a specific limit for this coverage. Due to the potential for mold to occur following property damage such as roof leaks and pipe breaks, we always recommend electing for the mold coverage endorsement whenever it is available to you. What is mold remediation? As part of the mold remediation process, a qualified professional will not only remove visible mold growth and contaminated building materials, but will also diligently remove the mold spores as well. This is particularly important as the mold spores are believed to be the primary cause of mold-related illness and allergic reactions. Finally, your Disaster Blaster team will make recommendations to address the underlying cause, preventing mold issues from developing in the future. This is what we call the Disaster Blaster difference, and what sets us apart from the rest of the industry. What is the difference between mold removal and mold remediation? Mold remediation is the technical term for the removal of mold growth and the invisible mold spores that may be in the air and on surfaces. This process is incredibly detailed and requires specialized training, equipment, and procedures to ensure that the work is performed properly and the mold issue has been effectively resolved. Your local Disaster Blaster specializes in mold remediation services and is able to evaluate the steps necessary to address your existing mold issue, including the visible mold growth and the invisible mold spores, and take steps to further prevent mold from returning in the future.